All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive today. We're heading straight into the heart of Pakistani politics.
Ooh, sounds intense.
Oh, it is. We're talking about Imran Khan's rise, the whole establishment thing,
Hmm.
and everything that's happened since he was, well, kicked out of
Lots of
office.
drama there.
Yeah, power struggles, social media wars, the whole nine yards. We've got some really interesting sources for this one.
Lay it on me.
So we've got these excerpts from like a proper academic study, all about the structure of their politics and all that.
Okay, the serious stuff.
Right. And then we've got this document. It's just called Pakistan Politics, and it's it's wild. It's like a firsthand account of what it feels like to be right in the middle of this political storm.
Oh, wow. That's got to be a roller coaster.
Yeah, and that's actually how it's described right off the bat in the document. An emotional roller coaster. Like every move could make or break the whole thing.
I can only imagine. Talk about high stakes.
And of course, you can't talk about Pakistani politics without, well, talking about the big players.
Of course. Who are we dealing with?
We've got Imran Khan, right? The former cricket star turned prime minister, well, ousted prime minister.
Right, back in April 2022, that was a whole thing.
Huge thing. And then there's Shahbaz Sharif. He's leading this group called the PDM, the Pakistan Democratic Movement. Basically, a bunch of opposition parties all banded together.
So a coalition situation.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
then there's the big one, the one that's always kind of lurking in the background, the establishment.
Ah, yes. The ever-present force in Pakistani politics. For those who might not know, what exactly are we talking about when we say the establishment?
Basically, it's this network of, well, powerful people, military folks, intelligence agencies, that sort of thing.
I see, pulling the strings behind the curtain.
Exactly. They have a lot of sway over the government, the decisions being made.
Got it. So let's go back to Imran Khan. His rise to power was pretty meteoric, wasn't it? Went from sports icon to prime minister. That's not an everyday career trajectory.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, he really tapped into that whole wave of populism that was happening everywhere.
Right, global phenomenon.
He became this outsider, this champion of the everyday person, fighting against corruption, promising to, break the power of the old political elite.
And it worked. Obviously, he became prime minister. But then the no confidence vote happened.
Yeah, it wasn't just a simple resignation. The PDM, they orchestrated this whole thing.
So he was basically forced out.
You got it. But, and here's where it gets really interesting, he didn't just disappear.
What did he do?
He used it. He used being kicked out to his advantage. He went on social media, he went to the people, and he flipped the whole narrative.
How so?
Instead of being the ousted guy, he became the symbol of defiance. He's rallying his supporters against this, what he calls a corrupt system that's rigged against him.
That's a powerful play, turning a loss into fuel for a movement.
Exactly. He's this victim of the establishment, of this grand conspiracy. It's like he's fighting for the will of the people.
So social media was key in all of this.
Absolutely. It became his main stage. His team was super smart about it, using Twitter, Facebook, all that to get around the regular media.
Bypass the gatekeepers.
Exactly. They could control what people were hearing, get their message out there, and rally support in a way that, it's never really been done before in Pakistan.
Wow. That's a game changer. So we've got Khan building this movement, the establishment operating in the shadows. But why?
Right. Good question. Why did they really want Khan out? Just power hungry? Or was there something more to it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure, but there are some theories floating around. Some analysts think the establishment got worried about Khan doing his own thing on the world stage,
What do you mean?
like with foreign policy. He was getting closer to Russia and China,
Mm-hmm.
which, could be seen as a challenge to the whole, traditional alliance with the West.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Pakistan's a major player. Any change there could shake things up globally.
Exactly. And then there's this stuff happening within Pakistan. Khan was all about anti-corruption, right? Big on populism. Might have stepped on some toes within the establishment.
So a threat to their power.
Maybe. They might have seen him as a risk to the way things have always been done. The people who benefit from that status quo.
So it sounds like they wanted to keep things predictable both at home and internationally. But Khan, he didn't just sit back and take it, did he?
Not at all. He used his removal almost like a springboard.
Mhm.
He really pushed that whole narrative of being a victim.
Yeah, we were talking about that, kind of like Nawaz Sharif and that Respect the Vote campaign.
Exactly. There are definitely some parallels. Challenging the election process, saying the establishment was pulling strings.
Mm-hmm.
But Khan, well, he seems to have taken it a step further, Really resonated with people.
Social media probably helped with that.
Definitely played a huge role. But there's also this whole American Lettergate thing.
Oh, yeah, what was that about?
Basically, Khan said he got this letter from a U.S. diplomat. It was all about how the U.S. wasn't happy with him,
Yeah.
his stance on the whole Russia-Ukraine situation, getting cozy with Russia and China.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he spun it like, look, they're trying to get rid of me because I'm not playing their game.
So it was like proof of a U.S.-backed plot to get him out.
Exactly. Fed right into that whole fighting for Pakistan's sovereignty thing. Now, whether the letter was real or, exaggerated,
Yeah.
hard to say for sure, but it definitely made an impact. People were talking.
It's like a real-life spy thriller or something.
It really is.
Yeah.
And things just kept escalating between Khan and the establishment.
Then we get to May 9th. That was a big one.
Absolutely. His arrest, the protests, it was a huge turning point. Really showed how deep the divisions run in Pakistan.
And how far the establishment was willing to go. The sources we have, they call it a hybrid dictatorship.
Yeah, hybrid dictatorship. It's a weird term, but it kind of fits.
What does it even mean?
Basically, it's like you have these democratic institutions, on paper at least, but the reality is they're undermined by,
The establishment.
exactly.
Yeah.
Military intelligence agencies, they hold a lot of power behind the scenes.
So democracy, but not really.
Pretty much. It's a system where the rules get broken when it's convenient. The judiciary, they're often influenced by the establishment. It's all very messy.
And Khan's arrest, that just ripped the Band-Aid off.
It was a wake-up call for a lot of people. They saw a former prime minister being dragged away, the crackdown on the protests.
Not a good look.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It made it impossible to ignore what was really going on. People were angry, disillusioned.
I bet. Seems like silencing Khan, well, that backfired big time.
It did. They wanted to shut him down, but it only made him stronger. More people rallied behind him. The whole victim narrative became even more powerful.
Wow. So May 9th was about so much more than just an arrest. It was like this moment of truth for a lot of Pakistanis.
You got it. They had to confront the reality of how power works in their country, and they started demanding more.
Accountability, transparency, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all this was happening with the general elections looming.
Oh, right. I forgot about those.
Yeah, those got delayed,
Yeah.
which of course just ramped up the tension even more. The establishment was in a tough spot, trying to figure out how to handle this surge in public anger, Khan's popularity, even though he was, behind bars.
That's crazy. So they're used to calling shots from the shadows.
Right.
And suddenly they're in the spotlight. Everything's out in the open.
Huge shift in the dynamics. The May 9th incident, it emboldened people. They weren't afraid to question the establishment anymore. They wanted change.
So what happened with the elections? Did they manage to get things back under control, or did this wave of public feeling, did it actually change things?
Well, the elections finally did happen. A lot of pressure from both sides, the PDM and Khan's party, the PTI.
Yeah.
But the results, well, they were pretty surprising.
Really? Who won?
PTI, they actually pulled it off.
Wow. That's a big deal.
It was. Shows you the power of public sentiment. People wanted something different, and they voted for it.
What about Khan, though? He was disqualified, right?
Yeah, he couldn't run himself.
Uh-huh.
But his presence, his influence, it was everywhere. He was still criticizing the establishment, saying there's more trouble coming.
Like he knew this wasn't over.
And he promised to keep fighting for his vision of Pakistan.
His vision, what is that exactly?
Well, it's complicated. Populism, nationalism, Islamic values, all mixed together. He paints himself as this champion of the ordinary person, fighting corruption, building a fairer society.
Sounds familiar.
Right. But he also leans heavily on Pakistan's Islamic heritage, morality, social justice, that kind of thing.
So traditional values, but with a modern twist. But what does that mean in practice? What makes him so different from the establishment he's always fighting against?
That's the key question, isn't it? It's not just talk. He actually wants to bring Islamic principles into how the country is run, how people live their lives. That sets him apart from more secular leaders. He's also pushed for things like better social welfare programs, tackling poverty, improving education, all focused on helping everyday Pakistanis.
So there's substance behind the image.
Right.
But I'm guessing not everyone's buying it.
Oh, definitely not. It's a mixed bag, really. Some people, they see him as a savior, someone who can break free from the old ways, lead Pakistan into a new era.
Hope and change, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But others, they see him as, well, a bit of a demagogue.
Dangerous.
Yeah. They think he's playing on people's fears, using that charisma to, grab power for himself. They point to his tendency to crack down on anyone who disagrees with him, his rhetoric that can be pretty divisive.
It's a global trend, isn't it? This whole populism thing, distrust of institutions, social media driving everything. It's like the rules of the game are changing right in front of us.
It really is.
Yeah.
And Imran Khan, he's a perfect example of how to play this new game using social media to build a following, tapping into those anxieties people have, promising them something better.
And it worked, at least for a while. But what does this all mean for Pakistan in the long run? I mean, May 9th was huge, but it feels like just one chapter in a much bigger story.
It's true. It exposed these deep rifts in Pakistani society, the lack of trust between the people and, well, the powers that be. That's not going to heal overnight.
What's next?
It's hard to say. Pakistan's at a crossroads. The decisions made now, they'll have a ripple effect for years to come. Will Imran Khan and his vision win out in the end? Or will the establishment claw their way back to the top?
And what about the people? Do they have a say in all of this?
That's the big question, isn't it? The Pakistani people, they're going to be a major factor in how this all plays out. It's like, we've watched this political thriller, right? And it ends on a cliffhanger. You're left wondering what happens next, what twists are coming.
I know, it's gripping. I keep thinking about how important the whole narrative is in all of this. You know, Khan and his people's champion image, the establishment trying to control the message through the traditional media, and then social media throwing everything wide open. It's like winning hearts and minds is just as important as winning actual political power.
Absolutely. Power isn't just about institutions anymore. It's about perception, about who can tell the most convincing story.
And that's something for all of us to think about, no matter where we are in the world.
Definitely. If you're intrigued by all of this, I'd encourage you to dive into the source materials we used. Read between the lines, try to see things from different angles, figure out what resonates with you.
That's where the real learning happens.
Exactly.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into Pakistani politics. Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll see you on the next one.